name is Caleb. I am a redshirt junior on the baseball team, right-handed pitcher. I am from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Caledonia, Michigan. But before we get into it tonight, I'm just going to take a minute to pray, and then we'll get started. So, dear God, I just thank you for the work that you're doing in people's lives. I just pray over our time together tonight that you would give me the words to say, and that I would just step out of the way and let you do your work, God. Thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. So I'm really excited to speak to you guys, or talk with you guys tonight, about something that's near and dear to my heart. But before we get into that, does anybody have a story of when maybe they were trying really hard to impress somebody and it just absolutely went wrong? No, I don't want to. Well, for me, there's a specific example that comes to mind. So, my freshman year, I get here and I'm a walk-on on the baseball team, first walk-on. So I really didn't know very many people. I got like my spot on the team in late July, and so I barely had any time to get to know anybody before I got to campus. So once I got to campus and got involved with my team and started meeting everybody, it was like, wow, what can I do to really impress these people? Because I'm going to be spending a lot of time with them, so I got to make sure that they like me. So just trying to figure that out. And then one night we're at a men's basketball game. And growing up, I'm a huge Michigan State fan. My dad went to school here. His mom and her siblings went to school here, and then their parents went to school here. So I'm a fourth generation Michigan State Spartan, and I had to make sure that everybody knew about it and knew how big of a fan I was of Michigan State. So we're at this basketball game, and I don't exactly remember who we were playing, but something awesome happened for MSU, and I wanted to show these guys that I was the loudest cheerer in the entire Breslin side. So I get up, somebody had like a slam dunk or something, I get up out of my chair, and I go to scream as loud as I can, and I have the worst voice crack of my entire life. So basically after that I felt like an inch tall and didn't want to say anything to anybody for the rest of the night. But I think that paints kind of a funny picture about what we do to try to gain acceptance from other people. You can see this, there's a bunch of different areas you can see it in college. Another example that comes to mind is like in Greek life. And this is just a generalization. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are great people that are involved in Greek life. But seriously, I'm sure there are. But especially during rush week, you've got people that are dressing a certain way or changing the way they talk or the way they go about their business in order to impress these people. Maybe they're the head of a fraternity or sorority or something. But they've got like their head on a swivel, and they're always trying to make sure that if somebody's watching me, am I doing something that's acceptable to the rest of these people? But like as athletes, we do the same thing. Once we get onto campus and join our team, we're looking at our coaches or our teammates and we're like, well, what's an awesome play I can make in this drill? It's like try to make an awesome play out of something super routine to make people like me, or put my name above somebody else's on the depth chart or something like that. But again, our heads are always on a swivel trying to gain the approval and acceptance of these people that we're in community with. But the reality is, when we're trying to do this, we're really striving in vain. As athletes especially, we're pushing our bodies to the breaking point, constantly in search of like a thumbs up from our coach or our teammates or somebody, just to get a pat on the back. But we're continually doing this. It's not like there's ever an end to it, where it's completely fulfilling. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what happens when there's nobody there to pat me on the back or nobody to tell me I did a good job? Like say Nate, if you had a career-ending injury, what's going to happen if there's nobody to tell you how fast you are? Something like that. So the passage I really want to point us to tonight is in Romans chapter 15, verse 7. You guys can go ahead and flip there if you want. But it says, "Therefore, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God." So if we go and break down this verse really quick, the first part, "Therefore, welcome one another," really hits on this idea of horizontal acceptance. And this is where we're living in a day-to-day. So basically the people that you're in contact with, God is calling you to welcome them as a brother in Christ, or as someone to hopefully encourage to have a relationship with Christ. You can also see it's not like a conditional thing where you only welcome them on Sunday at church, or you only welcome them Tuesday night at AIA or in the locker room. This is like a continuous thing that God's calling us to do. So the question we have to ask is, why is it so difficult for us to welcome one another in these situations that we're living in? So the idea really is that we are deep down, really we just want to be accepted for who we are. But the thing is, we're so afraid that if somebody sees who we really are, they're not going to accept me. We pick and choose what other people are going to say or see about us without really seeing us. If they do see everything about me, maybe they're going to reject me and say, you know, that Caleb guy, he sang some weird 80s song the other night. I don't think I can hang out with him anymore. So there's one time, actually a couple times, I saw this really cool diagram. Basically, you guys all know what an iceberg is, right? So you see probably 10% of the iceberg above the water, and there's about 90% of the iceberg that sits below the water. And so that 10% represents what we allow other people to see about us. And that 90% is what we keep hidden, is what we're putting a wall around. So, you know, if there's something that I've done that I don't want people to know about, they don't have to know about that thing. Because if they did know about it, maybe they wouldn't talk to me anymore, or maybe they would tell other people that I did something weird, and then it just wouldn't be a good situation. But really, we just want to be validated. We pick what we're going to let other people see. But again, we're doing all this stuff in vain, just like we talked about before, gaining the acceptance of other people. Searching, like these people that we're trying to seek approval from. These aren't people that are going to be in our lives for necessarily a long period of time. Like, I know my teammates could be great friends of mine, but they're also, they're not going to be people that are going to be in my life forever. So you're left with a choice. You can continue to keep striving for the approval of these people that it may or may not matter. You can let them see that 10% of you, and they still might say no. I know personally for me, at the beginning of my college career, I was really, I was not showing who I was to a lot of my teammates because I wanted to be accepted by them. I had personally a really big issue with talking about other people behind their back, and that wasn't a good representation of who I was deep down, because I have things that I've done wrong, and who am I to say something bad about somebody else in that situation? So I can continue trying to gain the approval of these other people, or I can choose the fulfilling acceptance of Jesus. So God, with that iceberg that we talked about, He sees the entire 100% of your iceberg, not just the 10%. But He still, after seeing it all, He still says, I love you, just as you are. So this validation that we keep searching for from other people, we have it right in the Word. Romans 5:8, you guys don't have to flip there, but Romans 5:8 says, God showed His love for us in this, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So that brings us to the second part of that Romans 15:7 verse, which is the horizontal acceptance. Jesus, and where is she? Nicole, right? Did a great job hitting on this. God lived a sinless life. He was fully man, but also fully God. And he lived a sinless life and died on the cross for sinful people like you and me. And he offers this to us freely. It's not something that you have to continually strive for, trying to gain the approval from your teammates. There's nothing that you can do to gain this. In fact, there's nothing at all. You can't work any bit of your body away to try to gain this acceptance. This is given to you freely from Jesus. So the only thing that you have to do is say yes. As many of you know, Valentine's Day is coming up this week, Thursday. And so in this situation, it can be really easy to try to do something that you might not necessarily otherwise do to try to gain the approval or acceptance of somebody. But with all of this in mind, I just want to encourage you guys. So especially for ladies in particular, don't compromise who you are to try to gain the approval of somebody when God tells you that you're beautifully and wonderfully made and you're made in the image of God. And for guys, we're called to be protectors of women. We're called to guard their hearts and not take advantage of them. So I really just want to encourage you guys with that. Now, going forward, what is going to happen once I walk out of here in 3 minutes and eat some pizza or whatnot? Do I just forget about this and then keep on living my life or whatever? But I really want to encourage you guys to do something about it. So maybe over the next week, like take a sticky note and write something down that's holding you back from growing in relationship with other people or growing in your relationship with God. Then you can take that and maybe share it with somebody else. So one thing that back in 8th grade, I think it was, me and my best friend, growing up all the way from preschool, and he's still my best friend today. But I made the choice to try to impress these other people that I thought were cool or had something special about them, I guess. And so I started to talk bad about my best friend behind his back and ignored him and did a whole bunch of other stuff, and basically ruined our friendship for the better part of a year. And it got to a point where it was so bad where I wasn't able to even spend time. He didn't want to spend time with me. I was too focused on pleasing other people that I didn't want to spend time with him. And so, thankfully, through God's grace, God is able to help us reconcile those things and restore those relationships. But that's like a year of a relationship, one of the best relationships I have, that I'll never be able to have back. So that was something that I needed to get off of my chest to help me grow before I was able to move on to this next period of my life. So then take that, whatever that is, and maybe share it with a teammate or two or somebody you're close with, and then pray for each other. In Hebrews 3, it talks about exhorting one another, which means to encourage one another. It says, exhort one another every day so that you do not become hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. And it can be really easy to do that when you're living your life in isolation by yourself, not in a community of other people. And that's really what God calls us into, is to grow in community, grow in relationship with each other as we're growing in relationship with Him. So I really want you guys to take this as not just like, oh, well, since other people got to welcome me, then I don't know if I really have to focus on other people. But that's not what the verse calls us to do at all. It says, back in Romans 15, verse 7, it says, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God. So really hitting, you work out horizontally because of what God did for you vertically. So that's really what I've got for you tonight. I just wanted to encourage you to help you guys grow in community and grow in relationship with each other after